Here's what's coming up in episode 167. Barbara Allin and Karen J. Moore.
So my journey began, I believe, as a little girl. I found that I was always very sensitive to energy around me and never really understood why.
I grew up in a Christian home. My dad is a minister, but I always really connected to spirit or to God when I was sitting by the water or canoeing.
That's when she told me about Arthur Findlay and my mouth dropped. I was like, there's such a thing as Arthur Findlay College. And I looked online and I got so excited.
You know, we finally got it together and started doing public demonstrations of mediumship.
Welcome to the Big Seance podcast. I'm Patrick Keller of BigSeance.com, and this is a place for an open discussion on all things paranormal, but specifically topics like ghosts and hauntings, paranormal research, spirit communication, psychics and mediums, and life after death. So basically, anything that pops up in my paranormal world. The candles are already lit, so you might as well come on in and join the Seance.
Hi, Paranerds. I've had such a busy couple of weeks here. You may or may not know that about 2 weeks ago, Joe and I said goodbye to Meril, our four-legged son who truly changed our lives and will never be forgotten. But I'll be honest, it's been hard. It's not been easy losing my buddy, and I've struggled, but many of you have reached out, and I want to thank you for all the kind messages, and we're doing okay. So a week ago, Joe and I left for a much-needed trip away from the house and had a little staycation at the St. Louis Union Station, which was built in 1894. Everyone here in the St. Louis area knows about and frequents the Union Station, either for shops or the Ferris wheel and the new aquarium, which is actually, those things are all contained in a more modern structure built in the 1980s that's underneath the original enormous train shed that covered 42 tracks. But I think it's rare for locals to actually stay in or visit the original hotel. We explored the hotel and I took lots of photos, which I've shared in the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook. I had no idea of what it looked like, and it's really, really beautiful. If you're anywhere near St. Louis or are planning a trip in the future, definitely consider staying at the St. Louis Union Station. Not in the newer rooms, but the nicer ones in the original structure. We enjoyed it so much, and it was actually the first time since March that we bravely left the house and had our meals in actual restaurants while wearing masks when we could and being as socially distanced as possible, of course. But then this last week, I helped to plan and organize a Black Voices Matter rally and march in support of my students, colleagues, and community of color. I feel like the whole thing almost killed this out of shape recluse, but it was a beautiful success, and the experience was truly a life changer for me. And we continue to work as a group to bring about change in our community. And we hope to do just that in the future. A fellow Paranerd and listener of the podcast, Ashley, who is in a strange twist of events. She's now a colleague of mine, which is cool. And she was a member of this task force as well. And it was an honor working with her. Unfortunately, it was not organized by our school district. It was a grassroots event spearheaded by a colleague of mine named Janie. And I kind of think maybe it ended up being better that way. So I'm a little late on bringing an episode to you, but I've been doing some cool things and I wanted to let you know. I won't make you wait any longer. So let's pour some tea and get to my conversation with Barbara and Karen. Barbara Allin is a Reiki Master practitioner, medium, intuitive reader, and owner of Red Fern Healing, based out of Innisfil, Ontario. She also provides mediumship and intuitive readings online for both humans and animals alike. Barbara is a wife and a mother of 3 and a college graduate. She has worked within the social services sector since 2001 as a counselor in addiction rehabilitation, an educational assistant within the public school system, and support for individuals with autism and developmental disabilities. Her journey into the mystical, spiritual side of life began in 2014. It was through the teachings and training of her wonderful Reiki teacher and mentor that she realized her capacity to be a conduit in the process of healing, as well as her potential as a medium. Shortly thereafter, she signed herself up for intuitive development classes. She has since continued her studies with teachers from New York State and Arthur Findlay College in the UK. Every single day, Barbara is reminded of the strength and beauty of the energy that both surrounds us and is within us all. It is her mission as a light worker to empower our highest self and to be a true link to the spirit world, to provide a platform and messages for healing. Barbara's website can be found at redfernhealing.com. Karen J. Moore provides heart-centered leadership through psychotherapy, mediumship, and holistic services, with a goal to help people understand the connection of heart, mind, body, and soul. She is a graduate from Dalhousie University with a bachelor's degree in psychology and from Acadia University with a bachelor and master's of education degrees. Karen spent 25 plus years in education as a teacher of students with special needs and as an administrator. She's an end-of-life care specialist and worked in hospice as executive director and in various roles over the past 5 years. She recently received a diploma in spiritual psychotherapy and provides counseling to children, teens, and adults. Karen is a Reiki Master practitioner and a reflexologist and enjoys meeting people and helping them on their path to healing. Over the past 10 years, Karen has been developing her skills as a spiritual medium, studying at the Arthur Findlay College in England and with various teachers from England, Scotland, the USA, and Canada. She provides workshops, classes, and demonstrations of mediumship and believes mediumship is a gift that provides the opportunity to help people heal and to understand that their loved ones continue to be with them. Karen's website can be found at SoulPath.ca. Barbara and Karen, welcome.
Thanks very much. Great to be here.
Thanks, Patrick.
I am so excited to have this conversation with you two. And you guys have been, Barbara, you've been in the Big Seance Parlor with us for a while, right?
Yeah, for a couple of years. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. So thanks for always participating there. And Karen, you're now in the Big Seance Parlor too. And so that'll be an interesting place for people to go to and have a conversation directly with you guys once they hear this episode. So that'll be cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, that'll be great.
You two work individually, but you also work as a duo, as a team. So somebody tell us about Barbara and Karen, the duo.
Barb and I met when we were doing our Reiki Master course, and we really connected, with one another. I had been to the Arthur Findlay College, and Barb was really interested in going. And so we talked more about that afterwards, and told her all about it. And so she went off to do it. But we also always talked about getting together and doing workshops together or doing training or demonstrations. So we finally got it together and started doing public demonstrations of mediumship. Barb, how about you?
I agree.
I concur.
Yeah. Actually, Karen was the one who actually told me about Arthur Findlay College during our Reiki training, and we were together 2 years ago as well in Ontario. A couple of the mentors from Arthur Findlay College come over across the lake from where we live, and so we ended up connecting there again. I was doing trance healing, and Karen was doing mediumship development, and so yeah, we've always just kept close contact, and it just seemed like this was the right time.
During the pandemic, I would have to say that we were really given this great opportunity to meet with people. We don't live in the same area. And so it was a perfect opportunity to hop on Zoom and be able to connect not only with each other and talk about things we could do together, but also, what could we do for other people around the world? So normally, we would have to be living in the same area. So we've been lucky that we've been able to do classes and have people from, all over Canada, the US, and our demonstrations. We've had people from all over the world join us. So it's been, really quite a great opportunity for us.
So I guess I missed that then. You guys have been doing these online demonstrations. And if people are members of the Big Seance Parlor, we've posted several of those and promoted those. And unfortunately, I've missed every one that you've done, but it was this pandemic that kind of inspired that work.
That's right. It sort of created that opportunity for us to say, hey, what are you up to these days? And would this be a great opportunity for us to get together and do something? And so we talked about it. And then, we talked some more and said, well, let's do classes. We both had lots of training from different mentors and teachers from around the world. And we started to offer those as well. Took advantage of it.
Well, if you've listened to the show at all, you know that I'm envious of anybody who has been to Arthur Findlay because I've wanted to go there for years. One of these days I'll get there. So I know that development is important to you both. And so it's probably important to hear from both of you about your own journeys and development, which you've probably already talked a little about. We heard a little about it in your bios, but maybe you can fill in some of the blanks for us. Let's start with Barbara. In your bio, you said 2014 was a big year. And that year always sticks out to me because 2014 is when I started the podcast. So I kind of that's a big part of my journey started then too.
So my journey began, I believe, as a little girl. I found that I was always very sensitive to energy around me and never really understood why. I also grew up in a very Christian home. So anything that I'm doing now was a no-go, to say it gently. And so I kind of just found myself going through life as a normal kid, normal youth. I had a son and I was a single mom for a bit. And I met my husband, and about 2014 was a really bad year for me. I just finished having my third son, and I just wasn't in a place good with anything really. And so I ended up going to counseling, and through conversation, just general conversation with this counselor, she guided me to a spiritual store. And I remember going to the store. Originally, I was going to go to get crystals. And what ended up happening was I stood outside of the store and I said, universe, I don't know what's going on. I know I'm at a loss and I just want to go into the store and whatever's meant to be will be. So I ended up walking into the store and just looking at the crystals. And I overheard the woman that works at the store and a customer talking about a reader being on site. And so I was like, this is interesting. So in my mind, I said, if there's a spot opened for me to get a reading, I'm taking it. And so I went up and asked her and she said, yeah, 40 minutes. You got one spot left. So I thought, okay, I'll do it. And so when I went into the read, within minutes, she said, you're a healer and you're extremely intuitive. These are all the things you could be doing. She told me about Reiki. She told me about mediumship and intuition. And as she was speaking, it was like she was reading my soul, literally, everything that I had ever had an interest in, ways about myself that I didn't understand until that point, and a path that I could be on that would be very rich for me, kind of just opened up at that moment. So I went home, told my husband, and then from there I just started looking online, and I found a Reiki practitioner who I met Karen through. And I just started doing local development classes and mediumship classes. And then through Karen doing our Masters of Reiki, that's when she told me about Arthur Findlay, and my mouth dropped. I was like, there's such a thing as Arthur Findlay College. And I looked online and I got so excited. And so I ended up going there a couple months after Karen told me about it. And I've just been developing ever since. I love it. I think it's great. I feel like, again, growing up as a young girl with depression and anxiety and this hypersensitivity and a feeling of not belonging, learning about energy and spirit communication and my guides, and making friends, especially in this field, that are just very grounding and very understanding of the great beyond, the universal connection that we all have, has been very important for my journey and for my growth. It's been a struggle. Some of it has been a lot of challenging parts for me, because I find that to grow intuitively, to grow as a medium, there's a lot of self-reflection that has to happen on a very personal and a very soul level. And it's kind of like every step I take to improve myself and my skills that I'm acquiring and practicing, a little bit of dirt comes up from all the things I have to deal with. And so I have to really find the balance and find the structure of my life as a whole is very important. And it's crucial. It's crucial to the development for me and my journey, having that growth of heart and understanding of who I am that goes hand in hand with the bigger picture of the universal connection and speaking to people who have passed. And
That's interesting. Now, before I get to Karen, because Karen, I want to ask you the same question and learn about your journey, but we all in some way or another have worked with young people. What I would like to ask you is, what can families and educators and adults, what could they do to make it better and easier for a young Barbara Allin in another family? You know what I'm saying? What are the resources that would have been nice to have, so maybe you could have started this journey earlier?
I think having an open mind is very important with this, and just really listening. I know that every time I would have explained or been interested in something to do with paranormal or certain TV shows of interest, or just even my sensitivity, it wasn't really understood. And it's not that I don't blame my parents, but I feel like if I could have created the perfect atmosphere for Barb to grow up, it would have been one that was open to exploring, I guess, the issue of being sensitive as a whole, and being open to having an open mind on things that were outside of the comfort zone, I think, because that really is, I think a lot of people are very, I guess, afraid of kind of extending themselves beyond their comfort zone. And I know that with me, that would have definitely helped.
So Karen, you mentioned that your experiences started much earlier. And so tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, I have some similarities to Barb. I grew up in a Christian home. My dad is a minister, but I always really connected to spirit or to God when I was sitting by the water or canoeing or out in nature. And I loved rocks from a young age. So when other people were asking for things for their birthday, I wanted a rock tumbler.
I wanted a rock tumbler and never got it.
Yeah, they're very noisy. I've got to tell you, they're very noisy. But, so I grew up in at least, with a family that would really understood that that's how I connected. And I had a sense that I didn't fit. I was sensitive in many ways as well. I had a lot of, difficult experiences. I wore a body brace and, I had scoliosis. And, my sister said to me at one point, if people think differently of you because, you look different, you've got all these bars and whatever, then they're not worth worrying about. And I would say in my 20s and 30s, early 30s, I started to have precognitive dreams, and very real, very vivid dreams. And one that really stands out for me is I dreamt that I was at a hospital, and it was at no hospital that I'd ever been at before. And I called my parents and I said, listen, I had this dream and it was very real, and someone in our family is in the hospital. And they were saying, Karen, don't worry about it. Nobody's in the hospital. Everything's fine. And I said, no, let me describe it to you. There's a condominium. It looks like condominiums on the right, a wall of windows, and on the left, the same thing. And there's a glass elevator and a set of stairs up the center. And I'm overlooking Subway Tim Hortons, and it's no hospital I've ever been in. And about 3 weeks later, my parents were visiting us in Nova Scotia. And we got a call from my sister. Her daughter had been airlifted to Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto. She was tubing behind a boat, and the boat had run over her and amputated her left arm. You know, every day we went up through this glass elevator and the stairs, but this one particular day, my dad and I came out of the hospital room and went around to the right, and we were standing looking over this railing at a Subway and a Tim Hortons, at this wall of windows on the right and the left, and he said, don't say a word. This is exactly the scene that you described for us a few weeks earlier. And so at that time, I remember saying, I don't want to know how to do this, but I wish I had said, help me to understand how I know how to do this. And so, you know, life continued on. I had many difficult times, very challenging times in my life where I wondered if God did exist. And, you know, then the dreams and things kept coming. In 2007, my brother-in-law died in death by suicide. And my sister and I started finding dimes in the oddest of places. You know, like she would be boating and she would look down and there were dimes in her flip-flops. Or, you know, I was a school principal at the time, and I would leave my office and go through the halls and find dimes through the hallway and come back to my chair and there'd be a dime there. And so it really sparked. That was in 2007, as I say, and I started to really do every kind of book, reading every kind of book I could. And a friend of mine asked if I would be open to experiencing different things. So I went to a Reiki practitioner, and she knew things about me that no one else really knew. And I had my first past life reading, and she knew people in my life that had really caused such grief and really made me question, you know, kind of who I was. And, you know, another day driving on my way to work, it was a snowstorm. And I'm not sure about you, where you live, but certainly where I do, principals were required to go to work, even though students, you know, and teachers could stay home. And I was driving on these treacherous roads, and I called out and I said, I need help. Like, is this all there is? Do I have a life purpose? Is there something else for me? And this little red fox ran in front of my car. And I said, you're sending me a red fox? Like, I have no idea what that means. And the next day I was going to see someone who was going to do energy work with me. And I'd never been to see her before. And it was a really helpful and healing session. And I asked for her card, and the name of her business was The Red Fox. So, you know, that for me was a real turning point. I knew that there was a superior intelligence out there, that people, somebody or someone was really listening to my call for help. And really, it changed my world. You know, during that time, I was training in Reiki. One of my birthdays, my husband asked what I wanted to do. And I said, you know, I'd like to go to Lilydale and I'd like to take a course. And Suzanne Geisman happened to be there teaching a course on how to live your best life. And I really needed it. I was really searching. And my husband and one of my sons went, and she mentioned the Arthur Findlay College. And my husband turned to me and said, I know you're going to go there one day. And really, when the time came and I did decide to go to the Arthur Findlay College, I felt like I was stepping for the first time on my journey home. And it's really the only way I can explain it is that I felt like I was going to go and find my tribe And so I've been on that journey ever since. And I've had amazing teachers from Scotland and England. And, as Barb said, those instructors have come to Ontario, and I've had people from Canada and the US, and it's just been amazing. I think also, as Barb said, it's really through struggle that we seem to find out who we are. And, we got to face all those different pieces, but it's also what kind of gets us on our journey in finding spirit and connecting. And, I've sat in numerous classes with people and where the instructors say, how can we help? And the answers are usually, we trust spirit. It's ourselves that we're trying to learn to trust. And so it's been an incredible journey, and it's ongoing. We're always learning, always discovering new things, for sure.
So it sounds to me like that kind of aha moment, that moment for you talked about being on your way home when you got to Arthur Findlay. Like that moment for me was just reading a book and realizing all of a sudden it's like the dogma is gone of what I've been taught, and that I was dealing with heaven and hell. And it's like, I'm going to the other side. Like I don't fear death anymore. That was my aha moment. And everything changed after that. Was there a moment, one of those just moments for you, Barbara?
I think I have two different moments. One with my recognizing fully that I was capable of connecting to the spirit world came in kind of like a paranormal way. I'd had a couple of experiences where I'd seen or felt things in different environments, in my work environment, at a restaurant, like really random things where it kind of caught me off guard because I wasn't really practicing or even really had a big goal of doing mediumship or anything. But I feel like in hindsight, they just were kind of like, wake up, you're capable. This is going to be your journey. You're going to go do that reading that I spoke of. And just that was a aha moment for me, recognizing what I can do. And I'm very much a logical person. Like you have to show me and I need to see to believe. So I feel like those very specific events for me of being able to like see spirit and feel spirit so clearly and be able to go and get verification and confirmation from people about what I felt and what I saw was huge for me. I think on more of a spiritual level, and something that really started my journey of becoming more emotionally stable and grounded was going to a library at the beginning of my journey. I went to the paranormal section and I basically just said, I don't know where to go. I'm just going to grab a book. And I pulled out a yellow book from Judith Orloff. She's, I believe, a psychologist in California, but she's an intuitive empath. And it was interesting. I pulled her book out and I went, okay, this is what I'm going to read. I have no idea what's going on, why I would choose this, but I felt I was guided. And within pages of starting this book, I was hooked. I read a whole bunch of her books. She talks a lot about being an empath, having those sensitivities, what that means. And she literally, I felt reading her books that for the first time ever, I went, oh my God, I'm normal. I'm just sensitive. And every depression, every anxiety, every uncomfortable situation or feeling like I didn't belong in my environment, my family, my body, everything started to make sense. And it was like a huge weight was lifted off me. I thought, I'm just really cool. This is great. This is awesome. I'm actually, everything else kind of started to transition from me feeling like a weirdo and everyone else being normal to me going, wait a second, this is real. Because the more in tune I got with my spirit, the more I felt like this is real. Nothing around me is real. You know what I mean? And it's really the Judith Orloff books helped me to understand myself and to feel normal and to understand the dark night of the soul and what that means for personal growth. So
I want to learn about these demonstrations that you guys do, but let's also talk about the goal. You guys gave me a goal that you said you have, and that goal is to demystify mediumship through showing the healing aspects of evidential mediumship, as well as empower others to get in touch with their intuitive selves. And so What do these demonstrations look like? What can people expect to get out of that?
So when we do our demonstrations, we start off by saying a prayer of intention. And the blessing or a prayer of intention is to really thank Spirit for joining us, our ancestors and loved ones from beyond the veil, and thanking people on earth who have joined us as well, but setting the intention, so the ethics, or setting the intention that we're reading for the highest good of all. We're bringing in messages of healing, of hope, and of love, and really trying to build understanding for people. And so we don't charge. We're really doing it to help heal the world. And really, I think that's what it needs right now. It really needs healing. So that's what we do. We start off that way. And Barb and I learned very quickly that having a guest medium was also helpful. And so we set a few guidelines up front. If we bring someone through and it sounds like the evidence that we're bringing through is for you, we ask you to unmute yourself and say, I can take that information. So yes, that's for me, or no, it's not, or I don't know, but don't give us any more information than that. It just makes it more difficult for us. And so our goal is always to try and, reach the one person, but we do know that Spirit will sometimes piggyback, and there may be a couple people that can take most of the messages that come through. And that's what we do. We give messages, to people. And we try and give evidence so that there's no doubt that we are connecting with our loved one by bringing through evidential information, or the personality of the person, or, maybe it's something about them. I know in one instant, I brought through someone who it was significance that they had a watch. Now, a lot of us have watches, so that doesn't really sound like evidence, but it was that they were covering up a tattoo on their left arm, and the person had been in the concentration camps. And so that's why it was so important that, this special watch that they were covering up. So, we never know what's going to come through. We don't, have any idea ahead of time. It's really very much in the moment, and we don't know who's going to be online. So, the one thing we do as well is try and connect with people ahead of time and find out where people are from.
Where does the education come in too? Is there an element of explaining a little bit about how you're doing and what's going on? Because I'm sure you have, I don't know, I'm maybe most of your people who would attend these are probably developing, spiritual people or developing mediums.
Yeah, that's right, Patrick. And one of the things that Barb and I have made sure that we do ahead of time is we introduce ourselves and we tell how we receive the information. So, I receive information. I'm clairvoyant, so I see things. I'm clairaudient. I hear things. I'm cognizant, I know things, and I'm clairsentient, I feel things. And, Barb does the same thing. She would introduce herself and say how she receives information. So Barb, how do you receive information?
Primarily, I see, hear, and feel. I have had the opportunity to have every kind of sense activated by Spirit when we see fit. But yeah, the see, hear, and feel is primarily what I use. But I find with just talking about the demonstration and education and demonstration, Karen and I both, I guess, grew up in this spiritual field with a high ethic, I would say. I believe that's a lot to do with who we've chosen to be our mentors, and how Spirit is bringing certain tutors and mentors to us, and what they want us to learn, and the certain ways that they want us to learn. Yeah, just having a strong ethic, and kind of the way we present the information as evidential mediums, the way that we interact with the people who we're giving readings to, all of that, we have an integrity about it, and we set that intention daily, with or without the demonstrations. But I really feel like that flows right into the demonstration and how people learn. A lot of the people that come see us, I think as Karen mentioned, are our students of mediumship. So I know personally, and I can say Karen too, because we talk a lot about it, but we understand that we have a lot of eyes on us, and we understand that we have to provide a really strong ethical platform for what we're doing, and in order to assist other people. And us too, we don't just we watch, and we're constantly doing classes and development groups and going online and trying to learn different ways. And Karen's in the midst of moving right now, but as soon as this COVID lift happens and she's closer to me, then we can start getting together and getting people in person for development groups again, because that's something that we've both done in past, led and been a part of development groups in person. And so education as a whole, from the actual mechanics of how to do mediumship or psychic development to finding yourself in the journey and where you belong on a grand scale, is very important to us.
I was just going to say, when I started off, in my very first class, my very first night in doing mediumship, I was going to observe. And so the woman handed me a clipboard and I said, what's this for? I'm just going to observe. And she said, no, you know how to do this. So go ahead. And I said, well, I actually don't know how to do this. And so, it was this, push-pull struggle. And she said, no, just write down everything you see, hear, feel, and know. And I went, what was that? See, hear, feel, and know. And so I brought through, it was quite interesting. She said, now stand up and say what you got. And I was completely intimidated, I have to say. And I stood up and I said, well, I'm not sure how you people didn't notice, but felt like I was choking. And I have a young gentleman here who died by suicide. And I know that July 22nd is important, and March, and here's his personality, and here's what he looked like. And the woman who the reading ended up being for said, I've been waiting for 6 years to hear from my son who died by suicide. And today I begin to heal. Well, for me, I thought, and she said to me, and you're new at this? And I said, yeah, clearly I don't know what I'm doing. But, the point for me was, if I can do this and help people heal, what a humbling experience that is. What a major gift that is. And, different people in the class, at the end of the year said to me, Karen, how is it that you do it? And I said, Spirit always gives me something I'm familiar with, or a picture, or something I can draw and take information from. And they said, really? We didn't know that. We didn't know that that's how to do it. And so I think Barb and I have talked about this. It's not supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to be a mystery that we're not going to share. We're telling people very openly and very upfront, this is what I'm getting, and this is what I'm giving. So we're giving you exactly what we're getting. And we're trying to demystify it, take that mystery out and show people exactly what we're getting, what we're receiving, so that maybe they can understand it better than we can. I remember doing a reading for my sister, and I thought, what am I going to say about my sister? I know her, but I really didn't know her. I said to her something like, I just keep seeing sparkly waters, and I don't know what that means. And she said, that is the best piece of evidence you could give me. It was something that she and her husband, Brian, used to always talk about that I would not have known anything about. So we're just really trying to take that challenge out of it and make it easier for people.
I'm glad you guys mentioned development groups, because that was actually going to be my next question. Your demonstration nights, that's what it was reminding me of. And until today, I'd never really considered that you could have, especially in times like now, virtual development groups. It's really kind of what you're doing. I don't know if that, does it work the same? Do you think it matters if you're, and maybe this is individual, but does it matter if you're in the room or if you're in a virtual setting?
I find that there are some differences with the activities specifically that you can do with someone who's in person versus virtually. However, the energy is the same. And so Karen and I are kind of figuring out different fun ways to get everyone involved through, whether it's like photo reading or token object readings where they look at photos or they can go by a name. We do meditations with them and sitting in the power. A lot of guided meditations, that kind of stuff. I think both of them are great. I find that, someone who's coming in for an online group may be more apt to joining or apt to showing up because they can stay in their pajamas and they don't have to travel. But there is something to be said for being in person as well. Even during readings, it's the energy does shift a bit, but it's always there. And so we're just working with what we've got. And I love the fact that we can connect with anyone around the world. That blows my mind that we can have, and the only downfall is the time difference.
Right.
But, yeah.
And I would agree. I think, certainly that's been the advantage for us is that we've been able to meet people from all around the world. And, we've had people from, Newfoundland and Germany and, all different places in our demonstrations and people from around the world in our classes as well. I think Barb is right. Certainly the activities that you do are a little bit different, but some of the best readings are done blindfolded. So you don't really have to, be there with the person in person. You can certainly do it with them online. And it's been a challenge for us to learn Zoom and the ins and outs of, online technology, but it's been great as well. So challenges and positivity.
What would you two say are some fears and misconceptions about mediumship that could use some dispelling of?
I think that when people hear you're a spiritual medium or a psychic, they think that you're reading their thoughts. And that would be like eavesdropping, on a conversation where you're not wanted, or, it'd be like watching someone, doing sign language when you're not really supposed to be part of that conversation. So I think that, we're busy living our own life and we're not eavesdropping, and no, we don't know your every thoughts that you're thinking. But also, I think that we certainly have the highest intent. I know Barb and I both do, that our goal is to help people, is to bring about understanding about readings. And I think people sometimes are really a little bit leery about psychic readings. But if you take a look at the word psychic, from the Greek meaning of it, it's the soul. And so we're tapping into your soul and doing, reading your energy and your aura and connecting with your soul and giving you a soul reading. And so hopefully that helps people to understand that your soul knows what you need, whether you need to hear from a loved one that's died or you need to hear something about your journey and getting you on your path with encouragement. Both are very worthwhile.
I agree completely. One of the things that I guess a fear that I continuously see, and Patrick, I know listening to all your podcasts is a common thing, is a fear of like the evil entities, the evil spirits, all that crazy stuff. And I personally do believe that there are lower energies. I also believe that what your intent is, majority of the time, is what you reap what you sow. I'm not saying that, people who have experiences have created it, but there's a sense of belief in those things that kind of overrides the ability to be calm, I guess. And then all that fear creeps in. And so I feel, especially with the board, I am a board advocate, a Ouija board advocate. And I've had some weird experiences, and literally I'm just like, we're done here. And that's it. And I come back to it when I'm ready. But the intention set with the board is always for the highest good. And I know that I am stronger, and I believe that we are all stronger than an energy that is around us. Personally, like, I won't let certain things into my energy. And I feel like, that's something that kind of has to be in your mindset about when you're going to go and do something like the board. But I know personally, I've had experiences, very healing experiences with the board. talking to my guides, talking to family who has passed over, and really getting words of wisdom and a lot of love from those on the other side through that means of communication. So I respect everyone who doesn't want to touch it. But I feel like the only thing I want to say is just like educate yourself a little bit, and if you feel like you're on the fence and you're not totally fear-based about it, give it a try. But make sure that when you do so, that you have someone there who's knowledgeable and that can help you out and really support you with using it and the how-tos and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, when you were talking about the lower entities, it kind of reminded me, I went into a psychic store once and I had spent all afternoon with a friend of mine, and then I left her and went into the psychic store. And I had a wonderful conversation, but when I left the store, I was very dizzy and disoriented, and I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't experience it. And I could hardly kind of drive my car and get home. When I got home, I called my friend and she said, "Where have you been? Because you know that you're too open and, you really need to kind of protect." I said, "Well, I wasn't thinking of that. I just went in and had a nice conversation with people in the store." And she did some energy work on me, and it was really a lesson for me. And another experience too, I would say, is, as Barb said, we're selling our house now, but we were selling our house once before. And so my husband and I decided that one person should stay in the almost empty house while the other one went to live in the house with all the furniture. So I was the one in the empty house. And I was laying there in bed, and this dark shadow came over me, and I lifted my covers up so that it was like almost at my eyes. And I said, "Okay, if you're a good spirit, could you just please light up the room like it's daylight?" And the whole room lit up like it was daylight. It was really quite profound. I felt these giant wings really surround me, which you would know to be like Archangel Michael. And I felt very comforted. And I think, whenever you're in that kind of a situation, ask for something positive to happen. And if it does, you're in good hands. And if it doesn't, stop it and get out of there.
And so that was just recent.
That was not too long ago. Yeah.
Wow. I gave members of the Big Seance Parlor on Facebook the opportunity to ask questions for both of you. 2 questions actually have a similar theme involving the word ego. Lunar Mercurius says, "How do you know you've connected to spirit rather than ego?" And then Amy asked, "What ethics do you follow to ensure the needs of spirit and sitter are the priority and not the ego of the medium?" So I guess, what could you speak to about just ego in general?
I think when you are dealing with ego, then you're not getting information. If you get some information when we're doing mediumship readings and we're asking for clarification, we're asking spirit for clarification. Ego isn't going to answer us. Spirit will answer us and provide us with information that's evidential, that will clarify the information that's coming through. We've been taught to give what we get, not to interpret it and, make a story up about it, but to give what we get and say it like it is. So I would certainly say that. That we're trained well, we have a high moral and ethical standards that I follow, that Barb follows. We've been trained by very highly educated people in the field, and we set that intention ahead of time, bring through messages for the highest good of all, to help people heal, to help people understand what we're doing, that will prove that life exists beyond, the physical world. And I believe that we're messengers for spirit first, for the sitter next. And there's a little saying that goes, "It's not about impressing, it's about the blessing." And I think all of those things together, it's a very humbling experience, but certainly ego provides nothing of substance. And that certainly isn't why I do it.
For me personally, I know that I'm not connected to my ego, because to me, when I'm connecting with spirit, the energy and the way I feel is extremely different compared to when I'm connecting to myself. To me, like when I feel the ego, when I feel that personal power of the ego and who I am, it connects very differently. I literally feel it like in my core, and I can really attune to myself and my physical self and my thoughts and logic and emotions and all that stuff. But when I'm connecting to spirit, I feel like I'm on autopilot, and everything just shifts into this really calm, very like connected, very enriched energy. And so I don't feel like I ever go into my ego. Actually, that's not true. When I go into my ego, I get kicked out of my mediumship because they're so different, and because I go right into my thinking brain. And that's the last thing that I need to be doing when I'm talking to spirit. It's like a flow. It's
so
like
it's
a
obvious to you.
Yeah. Yes. To me, very much. Yes.
Yeah, there's no flow with ego. There's nothing coming through. It just sort of stops. And often, if we're depending on which energy, if we're bringing in somewhat like male or female, that it has a different feel as well. But you can certainly feel the difference.
I feel as well, but with the ego, always when I think of ego, I think of like my sense of, oh, am I better than or less than? With ego a lot of the time in mediumship. And I don't, since day one, connecting with spirit, I have made a commitment to them. I said, I have screwed up in every other part of my life to some extent or another, and I refuse to ever let this energy drop. So I said, if there's one thing I'm going to do right, is going to be this. And so I walked into this line of work and this connection to this universal energy in a very high vibration, and I've kept that. And so I don't feel like that the intention, again, like what Karen mentioned too, the intention of it is such a high love and a high vibration that there's literally no room. I don't think that my guides would ever let me go into my ego, even if I felt like they'd shut it down so fast. And I feel like even working through self-doubt and working through, am I good enough? Am I not good enough? My energies and my guides that I work with are so strong with that I can feel their opinion very quickly. So I know that they would not let me stray. And I keep a very mindful attitude every single time I go to practice. Single time I go to work is a level of gratitude and a level of openness.
Yeah, I agree, Barb. I just think that's so important that we are always, grateful for the time that we have. And it's truly humbling. It's certainly healing, but it's a very humbling experience. And it's like we've set a date with spirit. When we do our demonstrations, we've set the intention, June 11th, June 16th, we've set a date with spirit, and we're going to show up and do our best for them to bring through their messages.
It's funny, recently throughout the whole world, actually, there's so many places in the world that tend to be very polarized now. And in the last week or so, especially here in the US, things are very tense, and there's been a lot of ego. Like, it's easy to see, and I feel the ego. And social media, lately I'm like, you got some ego going on, and there's not a lot of mediumship going on over at this house lately, and so it's here. It's clear to see lately. So I think that would be difficult if I was a medium and had to constantly disconnect from that. Sue asks. And this is, you'd mentioned the word psychic, Karen, a little bit earlier. Sue asks, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. How do you know you aren't just getting psychic hits on the client?
So I definitely know for myself the feeling of a psychic connection versus mediumship connection. I've actually worked on purpose to learn that distinction through practice. So what I did personally, what worked for me was I would find a quiet time throughout my day, and I would work with my guides, and I would say, I want you to come into my energy, and show me what you feel like. So I would take that space and I would just quiet my mind, quiet my body, and I would allow spirit to come in. And I would say, please step out, please step in, please and I still do that to this day. Whenever I have a couple minutes, like I'm sitting in the power and feeling it. And for me, that established a connection of a higher vibration, a higher energy that is very much similar to that of someone who has passed over. I know that difference. And when I do a psychic connection, it comes from my solar plexus. It comes from my core. Yeah. And it just physically feels very different for me, the difference. So.
And I would say that, certainly similar to Barb, but I also think that, sometimes we can give people intuitive or soul reading that is coming from spirit. So we're connected to spirit, but we're delivering them, evidence and an intuitive or soul reading. Other times when we're not connected to spirit, we can give just an intuitive reading that's coming from their aura and their energy. So I think there are different ways that we can deliver that. And I think we've also been taught to give people what they need, not necessarily what they want. So some people may come and say, I want to have a mediumship reading, but they're really struggling in their life. And what they really need is a soul reading. So sometimes what I'll do is I might start by connecting to their soul energy and start that way, and then go into a spirit connection. So I think there's certainly different ways around it.
And I think there are plenty of people out there that don't know the difference, but between a psychic and a medium and what those readings look like.
For sure. They, often they don't understand that. And I will simply just explain, what, I'm going to connect to you and your energy. And the way I do that is through my solar plexus, through the stomach area. And I'm going to connect to you. And then I'm going to bring through information by connecting to spirit of what you need, what your soul needs. And I'll connect to a loved one as well. We can also ask them, if there's anyone in particular that they were hoping to hear from. Often we will bring through the person that's coming through the loudest, but, we can certainly also connect to someone that they want to hear from.
So where do people go to find out more about these demonstrations? Do they need to connect to either or both of you on social media? Is there a location that you guys have been posting these other than in the Facebook groups and things like that? How do people find out more information about upcoming demonstrations for you two?
Well, I know that we both have it listed on our websites. So, I certainly, have updated it. It's listed on mine. And we both have Facebook pages, so it's listed there. And we try and post and list in different groups. Anyone who's a guest medium with us, we welcome them to post it anywhere they please as well.
Just mostly on our personal. There are sometimes that we post within our development groups as well, so that we can get people coming in who are also open to learning as well as possibly receiving a reading as well. So, just basically social media. And on our websites, we do have connections to all of our social media on there as well.
And again, for Karen, that is SoulPath.ca. And for Barbara, that is redfernhealing.com. Where do you see these demonstration groups going? If it's hard to imagine a no pandemic world right now, but where does this go in the future?
I think that our goal for now is to just continue to do them online. With the free demonstrations, what we do is we can have 40, 50, 60 people in the 1 hour. So we're very limited to the amount of spirit communication that we can have for any given person. But we are planning to start doing a more intimate demonstration where it would probably be for a very small fee, but you would be guaranteed a reading. And so we're going to be setting those up in the near future. As well, we are looking into the possibility of doing online and in-person parties or events. So we look forward to kind of amping up our demonstrations and our ability to connect with people in person and online, and to be able to provide those readings of healing for those who are guided to use us as their conduit in communication.
Well, I can't wait to join one of these. I know I've been seeing them for a while, and I really did plan on joining the last one you have, and I forgot. I completely forgot, and I felt really bad. But there's so many Zoom things and virtual things going on lately that I get them all confused. But I hope to see some of you guys there. I can't wait to see you guys in action. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
I guess one final thought that I might have is that, we're in this, global pandemic, and it's given us really an opportunity to pause and breathe and to look at the world a little bit differently. And, I think a lot of good things have come out of it. The animals are sort of back, and the air is getting cleaner, and the waterways are getting cleaner, and people are showing kindness and compassion. And, I think that at critical points in our lifetime, and certainly this has got to be one that's globally critical time, is out of pain comes compassion and healing. And so I think there's great compassion and healing going on in the world. People are banging their pots to show support for the frontline workers. They're writing on sidewalks and showing posters in windows. And, if part of what we can do is show the world healing in a different way, and we're doing it through our online demonstrations, then, that's one way to do it. I know that Greg Braden talks about choice points, and he talks about how in great times where there's outpouring of compassion, that it changes the magnetic grid of the earth. Well, this one is not a one event in one place, it's worldwide. And so I think that, that's certainly something to leave you with, is that we're all just trying to do our part to show healing to the world and to share love and kindness and compassion. And really, that's what the world needs right now.
I agree. On the heels of what Karen's saying, having to go through this whole critical time, I believe, for everyone is such an important opportunity. I choose to see this as an opportunity for growth and for really having that space, a forced space, really, like you're in your house, you can't get out type thing, of a space to that time to really get to know who you are, and to start really thinking and feeling more about where you're at. And, the one thing that I struggled with and that I'm constantly seeing is that people don't truly understand their capabilities and their worth, as far as I'm concerned. And I've got goosebumps. I feel like if I can leave you with anything, it's just to understand that you are a connected, beautiful soul that is capable of so much. And, throughout our days, there are different things that happen that kind of nudge us in the way that our soul is calling us to go. And I just encourage everyone to hear that within themselves, to see opportunities and to really take them, because the time is now, and just to really embrace who we are on a bigger level than just a 9-to-5 work day and watching the news. Like, pull away from all that stuff and find your heart center, live from your heart, and you will be guided into such a beautiful place. And don't let anyone stop you. Figure it out. It's important.
Other people. There's always people to connect with.
Yes, and use the internet is such a huge thing. Use that connection and the opportunity we have with social media to find the forums that work for you, and watch out for crazy people is another one. When you start hearing things that make you not sit well, when you start going, I don't know, get away from it. Use your instincts and your intuition with the people you spend your time with, and with the environments that you choose to be in. Makes a big difference following your intuition and what feels right within your heart. and it won't lead you astray.
That's beautiful. And let's all continue this conversation in the parlor, because we're all there. So that'll be cool. You guys rock. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. This is amazing.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you to the following super paranerds who support the show at patreon.com/big seance. Susan Davey, Josiel Lorenzo, Jim Budd, Natalie, Genesis, Bliss is my muse, Justin J. Justin, Anne Marie Sullivan, Melissa Armour, Kim Robb, Paula Mitchell, and Amy Park Gedicke. My supporters at the Parlor guest level, who can be found at bigseance.com/parlorguests, are Linda of shimmeringmoons.com, Denise Sia of Mystic Moms Paranormal, Anne Rekovich of ozparatech.com, Norman and Linda Keller, Lana and John of Carbon Lilies, Christopher Kohler, Bruce Williams, Marion Hover Clairvoyant, Dina DeCastro of Dina DeCastro Astrology, Nettie, Glenna Becker, Diane Rax, Peggy Hagen, David Rubenstein, and my little sister, Cassie Keller. That sound you just heard was the above and beyond. There's not even a category for your level of support fireworks display, because I have 4 awesome listeners who support the show at the $10 level: Steve Skinner, Kevin Gilbert, AJ Meredith, and James Wilfong. So thank you, Steve, Kevin, AJ, and James, and thank you, Paranerds.
For show notes, including links to anything we may have mentioned in this episode, visit bigseance.com. You can find and subscribe to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and just about anywhere podcasts are found. Do you have any comments or feedback? Go to bigseance.com/feedback to learn how to get your voice in a future show. Or you can call my feedback line, 7755-TELL-ME. That's 775-583-5563. Interested in learning how to promote and share the podcast? Go to bigseance.com/share. Thank you so much for listening. Unfortunately, it's time to blow the candles out, but we'll see you and light them again next time.